Welcome back to the Scarlet Faithful podcast. I'm Aaron Brightman. This episode, once again, is brought to you by Knights of the Riots and the Rutgers NIL Collective. Click on the link in the description of this episode to join their free newsletter covering all Rutgers athletics, as well as all the activities and events that they have going on to sponsor and help Rutgers student athletes with NIL and learn more how to become a member today. Wanted to cover a few things in this episode. Monday, August 12th. First, recapping some things that Greg Schiano said following the first scrimmage of training camp this past weekend, talking about Rutgers Olympians' success in the 2024 Paris Olympics, and then also the Hall of Fame class that was announced for the 2024 Rutgers Hall of Fame class, which will be unveiled this coming fall. Wanted to start with Greg Schiano's comments following the first scrimmage. Nothing too revealing other than a couple surprises. I thought one in terms of talking about the linebacker position with Moses Walker and Daryl Djambi getting first team reps because of Tyreen Powell, we know, is recovering from his second injury now since last season. Expected to be ready for the start of this season, but also now learning that Mo Toure is recovering from something as well. That's new information. A little bit surprising with Toure, but at the same time, with all the experience and veterans on this team, there's no reason to force things and to make sure that everyone's as healthy as possible for the start of this season. Doesn't sound like Toure's issue is very serious. And, you know, with the veterans that they have, Schiano was asked by Craig Epstein, rivals, just in terms of what's different with this training camp versus last, and he harped on that experience, the veterans knowing what to expect and having more confidence in everything. And I think that is so key for this team. So at the same time, building depth is a big thing that needs to happen for this season and beyond. David and Anderson and I had an episode not too far ago talking about the 2025 outlook and needing to develop players with having so many starters back this year. So Moses Walker and DJ, as Schiano calls him, Djambi at middle linebacker. Those are two guys that Rutgers needs to develop. And Schiano talked about having a lot of guys on the field this year. So those are two guys that are going to have an opportunity. So for them to run with the ones and get that reps in a live action in the scrimmage is a positive. So that was revealing. Also, his reinstating his belief that the offensive line is set. That was something that he kind of intimated at the start of training camp. So that gives confidence. We knew the left side of the line was more or less set with Holland Pierce returning at left tackle, Brian Felter returning at left guard, and then Gus Linkus at center. Kobe Asamoah at right guard was a starter throughout last season, more or less. It sounds like he should be in that role once again. And then at right tackle, it sounds like Tyler Needham has reasserted himself after a season-ending injury, after being the starter last year against Temple early on in the season, was looking like the starting right tackle in spring practice and has continued to look pretty good. It sounds like in training camp, just in terms of Schiano's nod to the starters being set. I would think that that's the case. You have Reggie Sutton and you have Shedrick Rose, the transfer from Ohio. Either can play guard or tackle. So that'll be interesting to see in terms of a depth piece, if that is such the case. And, you know, talking about rotational pieces, especially those first 2 weeks, you're going to rotate guys. It's going to be hotter. You're hopefully that, you know, they're not going to be competitive scores. So certainly an opportunity for the offensive line to build that depth. You have Dante Chen on the left side as well. And some younger guys working in. So I think the stability of the offensive line, having so many returning starters, if those five can hit the ground running this season, really bodes well. And I think with Pat Flaherty in his second year, he did wonders last year with this team. I think the key was, you know, obviously the run game. Kyle Monungai making a lot happen in 8-man boxes. That a lot of it was him. But the offensive line did better than expected. And then just over the pass rush, I mean, they were very clean in terms of allowing very few sacks last year. Having a mobile quarterback certainly contributed to that. And Wimsatt, you have Kahleah Copper, who I do think is more mobile than people give him credit for. But keeping him upright, keeping him clean in the pocket is going to be a huge key to the passing game, taking a step forward. And I think there's real reason for optimism that this offensive line can take another step forward. Obviously, having all those starters back is huge. Wide receivers, another one. still kind of TBD. One point that I wanted to make, just obviously everyone hopes that Demir Miller can be that elite playmaker that he was at the FCS level for Monmouth. That's certainly a huge key for the offense this year. But I think equally, Ian Strong, anyone could emerge as the number 2 receiver. But if he can emerge as the number 2 receiver, I think he has the highest ceiling as that number 2. You have Nassim Brantley, of course. You have Christian Dremel in the slot, who led the team in receiving last year. Remarkable effort from him. But if Ian Strong can ascend as that legit number 2 receiver, that will be a huge development for the offense. Schiano talked about the competition at the wide receiver position. He was hesitant to say anything definitive, said he wanted to watch the tape. But, in terms of this offensive group, I think those are your top 4 going into this year. Nassim Brantley is certainly going to be hungry at having missed all of last season due to the NCAA still not ruling on his eligibility. So that is a key development. He's a veteran guy, but I think just in terms of physical gifts, ability, ceiling as a talent, Ian Strong gives Rutgers that highest ceiling at that position. And if you could have Demir Miller and Ian Strong making plays on the outside, you have Christian Dremel back in the slot. Brantley is going to be very useful whether he starts or not. Those 4 give you a really good base, I think, at receiver position. Not to mention that I think the running backs are going to be more involved in the pass game. We'll see what Kenny Fletcher can give them in the pass game as a tight end. His blocking is going to be essential to his success. But again, just more reasons for optimism with the offense. Schiano's not going to give you too much in these press conferences, but I thought he seems genuinely encouraged by the wide receiver room and the competition that exists in that room. And that is certainly a positive development there. Other than that, he didn't go too much into it. He did give some good insight, I thought, in terms of the rule change with the communication and the helmets. You have 15 seconds for coach communication to speak with the quarterback. They're practicing that. He said they haven't been timing it. They've been letting it go, and now they're going to start going to that 15 seconds. So that will be an interesting development. That's a new development across all of college football. So I think how offensive coordinators can master that 15 seconds, that's going to be a leg up for anyone that is really good at that. So we'll see how Shiraka and Kahleah Copper can manage that process. But that is certainly a variable that, hasn't really been talked about. That's going to be certainly a factor with this season and the pass game. But just in terms of this offense, not a lot on the defense talked about other than that linebacking depth piece right there. Again, reasons to believe that both Powell and Teray will be healthy and ready for the season opener. But getting that experience from Walker, I just think Walker is so important to this season. I think he's the most important X factor for this defense in terms of what he can do. Even if Powell is 100% from day one, being able to play Walker and slot him in and being able to move Teray around, it just makes this team that much more unpredictable and more dangerous. Obviously, generating a natural pass rush is going to be key for this defense to take that next step. So a lot of what Schiano said to be expected, but I thought his overall vibe was really good. And, it's been a grind. They're 2 weeks in now, entering week 3. And he looked enthused. He looked inspired. He didn't look worn down. He didn't look worried. He's, a master of deception just in terms of how he speaks to the media. But I thought overall he looked pretty pleased with the state of this team. He was asked about all the hype with them being a trendy sleeper pick to make the playoffs. Of course, Schiano talking about chop, but also just talking about leaving that on the table as poison. Don't ingest that poison. Don't believe the hype. And I think there's probably, you could argue, not many better coaches out there in terms of being able to keep their team focused in the moment, week to week, chopping the moment, not getting ahead of themselves. And I think this group, as a senior group, they have something to prove. They've been on losing teams in this program. They were able to take the next step last season, and I don't think they're going to be satisfied with a 7-5, maybe even an 8-4 record. I think they're really shooting for the stars here, and I think they understand the focus that's going to require, the work that's going to require. So I think if there's, biggest reason to be confident in this team is what this senior group gives them, what this coaching staff gets them. I think if Rutgers does not achieve their goals or exceed expectations this season, it won't be for a lack of preparation. It won't be for a lack of the proper mindset. It's just going to be a matter of execution on the field. Moving on now, in terms of Olympics, now over 2024 Paris Olympics, and Rutgers had tremendous success in the Paris Olympics. Sebastian Rivera winning the program's first ever medal on Sunday, won the bronze in a very competitive weight class. So great news for him, wrestling for Puerto Rico. Sebastian Rivera, 1 year at Rutgers, but still very involved in the program and the wrestling club. So great news for him. Casey Murphy winning the gold medal with the women's soccer team. Obviously, it's the backup, but she's been with the national team for a while now. You have to imagine that maybe in the 2028 LA Olympics, she'd be the front runner to be the starting keeper then. But great for her to win a medal. And also former star Denise Reddy, an assistant coach for the Olympic team, won a gold medal as well. So congratulations to both of them. And then Kahleah Copper really shining on the biggest stage on Sunday in the gold medal game, saving Team USA with 10 fourth quarter points. They scored 20 total in the final frame. She scored 10, including 6 from the free throw line, including the icing on the cake, icing the game, the final 2 free throws with 5 seconds to go to extend that lead, which was vital because they won by 1, hitting 6 free throws, all 6 attempts in the fourth quarter, 10 points overall. Gritty player. She's had a tremendous pro career since leaving Rutgers, had a tremendous Rutgers career. Love watching her play. And she's really ascended in the WNBA, winning that title not too long ago and being the MVP. So she's had quite a ride and improved her legacy even more, so being such a key figure in the USA women's basketball team, winning gold medal against France on their home court on Sunday. It was dramatic, and it was great to see former Rutgers player and star Kahleah Copper take center stage on the world stage and come through big. So 3 medalists for Rutgers, former Rutgers athletes at the Paris Olympics. And then you also want to just shout out Aurelia Garantis, led Puerto Rico women's basketball team in scoring, over 12 points a game. They did not advance past the group stage, but she did lead them in scoring, so great for her. And then Rudy Winkler in the hammer, his 3rd Olympics, finished 6th. I know he wanted a medal, but still respectable, getting there and finishing 6th in that competition. So overall, Rutgers athletes representing very well at the 2024 Paris Olympics. And then lastly, wanted to acknowledge Rutgers announcing its 2024 Athletics Hall of Fame class on Monday. So it's a 6-person class. I'm going to go down the line here. John Pomp Chandler, lightweight football from back in the day, back in the 30s, getting inducted. So good for him. Haley Cohen, specifically for softball. She was actually a 3-sport athlete at Rutgers in field hockey, softball, and women's basketball back in the late 70s. Great for her. The first ever women's lacrosse All-American player for the program, Maria Grant, back in the 80s. She was included in this 2024 Rutgers Athletics Hall of Fame class. Congratulations to her. Ralph Tedeschi, throwing it all the way back to the late 40s, part of a team that won the co-national title in fencing for Rutgers. He's inducted. And then, most notably, the McCourty brothers, rightfully so, getting inducted to the Rutgers Hall of Fame. Both great careers on the banks and both great pro careers. Devin McCourty, of course, all the Super Bowls with the New England Patriots. Jason McCourty winning one there as well and having a tremendous career in his own right. Both great players, great representatives of Rutgers football on and off the field, and so happy for them. We'll get into that, more specifics closer to induction day. They are prime examples of Schiano's tenure in taking under-recruited players and making them great. And it's just been awesome to watch their entire careers and what they were able to do, both at Rutgers and in the NFL. So that's going to be really touching and a lot of fun for football fans when they see both the McCourty brothers get inducted together. The 2024 Hall of Fame class will be celebrated on the field at halftime during the blackout game against Washington on Friday, September 27th at SHI Stadium. So look out for that. We'll talk about this Hall of Fame class closer to date, but wanted to cover a lot here. And again, Rutgers football trucking along now, entering week 3 of training camp. The Olympics are now over. Hall of Fame class is out there. Plenty more to talk about Rutgers football and all Rutgers sports coming up I had Jake Butt, BTN analyst, on the podcast last Friday. Check that interview out if you haven't seen it yet, and why he's so positive and hopeful for Rutgers football this year. Had Emily Mason on last week as well. Rutgers women's soccer kicking off the season Thursday at NJIT, so check that out also. And I'll be back with plenty more this week here at the Scarlet Faithful podcast. Thanks so much for listening and watching once again.